So, Chris, thank you very much for spending the time. You know, we all kind of set out, Mike Spicer, the founders, John Waleshka, you, a bunch of people set out to build a huge winner in a really tough competitive space. I mean, there were so many different ways Snowflake could have died, as you know. I think a lot of people are curious about how this happened. How did you build the company? And you personally are one of the more surprising details of the Snowflake story. And as you know, I'm not trying to be overly enthusiastic about one person versus the rest, because it was a real team effort. But I think a lot of people are really curious about how you evolved. How did you build this company and the different challenges you face? So I'd love to just have you tell your story to a future audience of people that are really fascinated by the evolution of someone that took a company from zero past $1 billion. I think there maybe are two people that have ever done that. I can't even think of the other one.
Yeah.
So congratulations in the
Thank
sincerest of ways, man. Thank you so much for everything you've done for that company and everybody involved.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll start off with better lucky than good. So I think there has to be a ton of humility in whatever you do. I think, I've thought a lot. I've been thinking a lot about, the growth I've had here at Snowflake, and even some of the decisions that made me go to Snowflake it's pretty interesting. Is, when Spicer approached me, I had been working at a company that got acquired. Spent 8 years at EMC. Company acquired that. EMC acquired Avexa, which was where I worked, and I ran the West there. And as part of a John McMahon portfolio company. So John is a legendary sales leader, and when you're successful in that type of environment, I think a lot of people want to hire you. So I was getting a lot of, leaders coming to me and saying, "Hey, come do this, come do that." And there were much more mature companies that were interesting. Like AppDynamics is a great example that was pursuing me. And the thing that I had this kind of point in my life called a midlife crisis, where I was like, man, I don't want to go work for just another person, like another sales, jerk, to be honest with you. And I wanted to work for people that I liked. And so my friend who I'd worked with at EMC, Brian O'Shea, introduced me to Spicer. And I mean, Mike, and I went in and I sat down at Sutter Hill. And I mean, I think for the first probably 20 minutes, he talks about how 100% of the universities are going to go bankrupt. And I'm like, kind of like, who the hell is this guy? But he's so energetic. I'm like, man, this guy's, whatever he's talking about, I'm excited about. And then he gets into Snowflake. And so look, the thing that he said to me, which resonates, is, when I chose Snowflake, there's just zero chance that I knew it would be the beast it is today. Is, he said, I only want to invest in companies that go after massive markets, right? So I want to disrupt huge markets. And he was off the heels of, disrupting EMC and with Pure Storage, right? And so he's like, that's what I want to go do. And I invest in good people. And then he talked about how he interviewed, 100 PhDs in databases to build a Flash-based database. And one of those PhDs told him it was a stupid idea. And that's the guy who he hired to invest in start Snowflake, and that was Benoit. And I got to meet with Benoit and Thierry and Mike, and I liked those people. Like, so first of all, they were just good people. And the thing that Silicon Valley is full of, and Andy, you probably know this better than most, is that it's a lot of just people that want to, have big titles, that are entitled to a bunch of stuff. They just feel like, hey, I'm God's gift, right? And you probably deal with these egos all the time. And it's like Benoit and Thierry, they were like, we don't even want to be managers. We just want to make an awesome product. And I'm like, I can sell those guys. Like, I can sell them. Like, I'm like, okay, all right, I'm feeling them. They're going to make this product. I felt the cloud was coming. Amazon had launched Amazon Redshift 9 months before I had started. They had signed up 1,000 customers in that 9 months. So there was a market there. I didn't have any sense. And Spicer told me, hey, Degnan, you're going to be the director of sales. Like, you're not going to be the VP of sales. We're going to bring in someone over. You maybe you might be able to run the Americas, right? And so that was humbling. but I, I will never take no for an answer. Like, I will always just grind it out. And the way that I thought about things when I got there was, hey, dude, just do your job today. Like focus on execution now, right now. And they can't fire you if you're successful today. And tomorrow's another day. In fact, I was just talking to someone that works for me, who's worked for Frank Slootman for 3 companies, and we sort of half joking, say like every one-on-one we go in to see Frank, we're wondering if we're going to get fired. And there's that a little bit of like paranoia that sits behind me. And that's prior to Frank. That was just how I always was, right? I'm always a little bit paranoid. But I think that was the thing, is I found a neat market that I thought was cool, found good people. And then it was just a ton of trial and error. It was like, go out and try something, fail, try it a different way. Hey, Benoit, will you ever put Snowflake in the private cloud? And he said, no. So I'm like, okay, I can't sell to big companies right now. And so you kind of figure out who your ideal customer profile is. You start targeting them. As we started to see upticks in meetings, I said, okay, this thing seems to be hunting. Let's go and hire a couple more reps and hire a couple more reps. And the thing that I forgot to mention that was probably the most critical thing that Mike did for me was when I was interviewing with him, I'm like, Mike, no offense, but you don't know a lot about sales. I'm like, and you're saying you're going to bring in a CEO. I have no one that's going to support me. So it would be great for you to put someone who cares about sales on the board. And he asked like who? And I'm like, well, a guy like John McMahon, who's on the board of my last company. And boom, he puts John on the board literally the next day. And he took my final, objection off the table. So I think those are the things, like, just you work with these people. And then John was such a wealth of knowledge for me. And then as we brought in Bob didn't know what to make of me, right? And he was trying to figure it out. And one day I just said, Bob, can I be the VP of sales? People are calling me the VP of sales. And he said, okay, but I'm not going to give you a raise. You're not getting any more stock, but you can call yourself the VP of sales. I'm not going to give you an offer letter that says that. And so sure enough, he kind of, because I asked, right? He let me be the VP of sales. And then I had to then slowly hire leaders underneath me. It was like, hire Europe, hire head of North America, hire these people. And then when I did that successfully, then he promoted me officially at the board to the CRO.
While you're getting all these calls from all these other companies, Chris, you're almost getting not abused at all, but you might be getting marginalized or overlooked, and yet you're grinding away against the avalanche of Amazon. Redshift was a hot product at the time. BigQuery was coming out. Nobody thought about multi-cloud at that time. Nobody thought you really needed a neutral territory for a warehouse. And we had iffy gross margin. We had a lot of issues, a lot of headwinds. Why did you stay with it?
So look, I'm a product seller. So Frank and I talk about what type of salesperson I am. I can't sell ice to Eskimos. I'm not a great natural salesperson. I have to really be into what I'm selling. And it was the people first. And then what I started to figure out was, there was a pain. Look, if Redshift had been an awesome product, we would have been screwed. To be honest with you, right? So it wasn't, because I would go in and I'd ask the questions, tell me what's going well. And they'd say, Redshift's great. I'm like, well, tell me how you do this. Tell me how you do this. Tell me how you do this. And they're like, oh, well, I can't do that. I can't do that. I struggle with this. I'm like, well, we can do all that stuff. And then I would just beg people to do it. Now, I'm a competitive person. There were plenty of customers that told me to go pound sand and that they didn't want to be our customer. But we navigated, through that.
You believed, and you have to recruit people. You recruit a lot of people you knew from former lives. These are friends, colleagues, people that are trusting you with their family's futures. How'd you look them in the eye? Did you just have so much conviction that the product vision was going to work and we had the superior product, even though we were kind of the fast follower? Is that what really kept you in the socket all those years?
Yeah. Look, there's probably the first 2 months where I was like, oh shit, what did I do? Right? oh my God, like Amazon Redshift is going to kick our ass. They wouldn't let me, Mike wouldn't let us have a website. So yeah, there were dark days like that. I was like, oh my God, this is not going to work. But then when you find this sliver that no one else can do this one thing, and for us, it was natively ingesting semi-structured data. So I'm like, okay, I found that pain. And dude, it was a big pain. So now McMahon will tell you that like I was selling to, ad tech and online gaming companies. And he's like, man, that's not a sustainable business. Right. So that was the scary part, I think, for the investors was, is this really going to work? I mean, I don't think they believe, like it was hard raising money. I came in post Series A, which was all Spicer. And then, I each and every round was hard. I mean, people didn't want to give us money. And in fact, I mean, I talked, I jokingly kind of gave Sequoia a hard time the other day because they passed up our Series D only to lead our Series E, right? So it's like, you see stuff like that. And you have to have an amazing product to beat out a competitor like.
More importantly, you have to personally, as the sales leader, have deep conviction that you have the superior product.
Yes.
Tell me about this situation when we brought in Bob. He was a first timer. We were betting the farm on a first time exec who had done nothing but big companies. Bring in Bob, bring in Denise. We brought in a bunch of cast of characters from different companies. They didn't all come from the same place. There was no gene pool engineering of Snowflake. How did you embrace those people, connect with them, build trust with them? You're the sales leader, as much a product people, much a technical people. Tell me about what learnings did you take away in terms of bonding with new personalities as they come on board? Because that's another piece of Snowflake that's really special, is the leadership is pretty tight. There hasn't been a lot of turnover at the senior level. There's some couple of notable change outs, obviously, we all know about, but let's hear your story about it. What do you think is the trick to people bonding? Muglia really did a great job crystallizing a cast of characters that came from different places that didn't make a ton of sense to the outside eye. What's your take on all that?
Bob is first of all, incredible human being, and really one of the greatest product-minded people that I know, right? In the industry, like ever. Hands down. Like, the guy is incredible. And I remember going to Spicer saying, this is a big company guy. Why the hell are we hiring Bob? Right? I literally said that to him. And I'm like, look, there is not a more perfect person than Bob to be the CEO of Snowflake when we started. And really because Bob is super smart, and he has this ability to cross the chasm between sitting down with the engineering and go toe to toe with them, and then punching me in the face and telling me, that I'm not going to bully him into some pricing model, right? And he can go toe to toe on the business side. So he's a unique character, and he was so perfect in that role. But the nice part for Bob and I was he and I had this kind of big brother, little brother relationship. And it would fall off our shoulder. It would be like, okay, we're in a room, we're fighting, we're arguing about quotas or how we're going to price the product or this, that, and the other. And
it was never personal.
It was never personal. Never. And honestly, what was nice about it was, Bob, I am who you see, right? I'm not political. I don't say shit about people. I'm just very direct. And I think Bob understood that. Is like, I'm a pretty honest guy. I'm going to tell you what I think, whether you're Bob Muglia, you're Frank Slootman, or you're, a BDR that's just starting a Snowflake. I'm going to be the same way, but I'm going to be very direct with you. I'm going to tell you how it is. And I think Bob is that same way. And I think we got along, and dude, that was a healthy friction that we had. That we didn't always agree at the end of the day, but that friction there was good. And then really what would happen with Denise, she came in as we started to see product market fit. And, the advice I'd give to anyone in the world of, early stage startups is, I think you want your CEO, it's ideal for your CEO to be a product person. I think it's ideal then when you start to see momentum to hire a CMO or at least a VP of demand generation that is demand generation focused. Because guess what? You need leads. you as the CEO has to help you figure out the product market fit and what they're going to do to pivot. Because that was Bob's, that's what he did. He was our chief product officer.
But Denise turned out to be one of the great CMOs probably in history. Usually when you have a sales exec, it's the homegrown person bringing a CMO, the sales exec and the CMO battle. You seem to have a great relationship with Denise from day one. What do you attribute that to?
Again, we're honest with each other, and we're friends. I mean, like, she's like, I remember asking her, like, I ask this question sometimes in interviews, and I say, what's the biggest misperception of you? I want to see if people have self-awareness. And with a very straight face, Denise says, Ice Queen. And I'm like, what? And then she laughed. And she's like, yeah, people think I'm Swedish. I'm very serious, but I'm really a lot of fun. And I was like, wow, that's pretty funny. And her and I established this relationship. And she's like, hey, Chris, I don't want you caring about marketing qualified leads or SQLs or sales accepted leads or any of this crap. All I want you to know is I'm here to help you get leads. And that's all she did. I'm like, dude, I spent so much energy with previous marketing people around what an MQL is. How do we, and she would just be like, get rid of that. Let's just go. And she has this mentality of, let's go, align with sales. And as luck would have it, I'm like, I saw that in her, and I'm like, she's a badass and she works hard. And so I'm like, I trusted her and she trusted me. And I think that's key. Like, to your point about the executive staff, we had a very trusting relationship and a really, a good relationship with everyone. I think that's key, right?
So let's just step back for a second and recap. Everybody had a shared passion for the product vision and total belief that we had the best product in the world. I believed it. You believed it. Spicer believed it. Waleska, everybody in the company, Denise. That's really interesting. Trust was very important. When you guys had disagreements, it was a pragmatic conversation about making Snowflake better, never being personal. And everybody had this kind of, shared responsibility to build an incredible company, even in the face of huge headwinds. I personally was making venture calls to VCs to try to pitch Snowflake in the Series C to help Bob. And it was just crazy. People go, oh, wow, what an incredible success story. But, the under the hood story is really important for stuff. Here's why I really thought that today would be a great call. And thank you, by the way, again, for all your time. I see a lot of startups trying to hire the president. And I remember getting a call from Moogly saying, I'm getting a lot of pressure to hire a president over Degnan. I was like, why do they want to do that? He said, I don't know, just it seems like it's what everybody does. I said, well, is that right for you? I was like, I don't think so. I said, do you have conviction in Chris? Yes. Do you have any worries about him 6 months, 12 months? He said, no. I said, then you shouldn't do it. And so there's a lot of times where founders or CEOs just shouldn't do a search and go look outside. And that's the thing I really am trying to clue into thematically. One of the themes lately is I think a lot of entrepreneurs just have this knee-jerk feeling. Oh, okay, the VC tells me I have to go hire a search firm, a headhunter. Let's go pay him a bunch of money and we'll go hire somebody. And it's a crapshoot to bring from people from the outside when you might have that gem already on your team. And I think it's incredible, but you had to actually take a lot of steps and get through the knothole and build a lot of internal credibility. When you look back at that piece, you must have been sort of feeling like you had this gun at your head the entire time you were there. You've already described that. How proactive were you about saying, hey, I need to build a muscle in commercial. I need to build a muscle in enterprise. I need to figure out channel. I need to figure out all these different things. How do I fuel product-led growth? How did you go about building your own skill set? Did you just study under McMahon? Because he's got some incredible skills, but doesn't have the whole thing is he's been out of the line for a while. So what's your solution there?
Yeah, you take a bit from everybody, right? And I think, like Bob, obviously ran a massive business at Microsoft. There were a lot of things that he was right on. Like he and I battled early days around resellers. Like I had used resellers and he was like, no effing way, man. Here's why you don't need resellers in a SaaS model. And he was right. Like it made it harder, but he was right. McMahon has this productivity model is as you start to hire, here's where, as you get beyond, six reps to a frontline manager, the frontline manager starts to become ineffective as in your fast scaling company. And so there were things that I would take from each person and listen, and McMahon will tell you this. I mean, he and I talk about it all the time is, you have to be open to coaching. If you come in and say, I am God's gift, and this is where I say the ego matters is, I'm still learning every day from people that work for me or like that don't even work in my organization that are maybe, 15 years younger than me. It's just like I'm learning every single day, and I have to be humble and be open to that feedback because I'm not always right.
You weren't
And
just open to it, you looked for it.
yeah, yes, and you are going to make mistakes, and you have to be open to raising your hand and saying, yeah, I effed up, and I'm going to fix that. So yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I think you have to constantly be wanting to get better. You have to be seeking advice. You have to listen to that advice and follow through, because sometimes there's heavy stuff that you have to do. Like when Frank came in and said, we're going to resegment the entire sales organization in the middle of the year, and I'm going to fire my head of North America, and I'm going to do this. I mean, dude, it was hard. It was probably the most stressful 6 months of my entire professional career when Frank came on. But dude, we made it to the other side, and he was right? So you take feedback from people. So to the founders that have, if you look, there are people that you've been a sales rep and you've never led people. I think it's hard, for a sales rep who has never led people to just rise from never leading to being the head of sales. I had experience leading people, but I also had great advisors. I look at the kind of the school, my MBA, it's, Bob Mugley, it's Mike Spicer, it's John McMahon, it's Denise Pearson. There's just this plethora of people that were so amazing in raising me up. And like I say, it takes a village to raise a child. Same thing here, right?
It's amazing. Frank Slutin was there about 3 minutes when I heard through Mike. He loves Chris. He's going to hang on to Chris and go ride Chris all the way. And there are so many surprising things about Snowflake's history. You could write a book. You must write several books on the story of this company and how many unlikely things occurred. Another question for you. What advice would you give founders or CEOs about grooming who they have and hanging on to their existing talent and developing that talent? Your core team has been in place for years. And even through a new CEO is extremely demanding, extraordinarily talented, doesn't suffer fools for 1 minute, the team's still pretty much in place. Christian, you, Denise, a lot of people.
Yeah.
What advice would you give founders or CEOs about how do you keep that in place, and how much of a factor is that in the Snowflake success story? Is it a big one?
You have to.
Big factor is that?
You have to seek out. Look, each person you learn a lot from. Frank, has said, look, the numbers can hide a lot of things at Snowflake because we have such a good product; it can go so fast. And there were some warts in the sales organization that I created. There's problems that I created. And I think, but Frank, what I think, he and I talk about it is like, my whole focus is, I hate losing. Like it drives me nuts. Right. And so I don't celebrate my wins. I kind of commiserate over my losses. And I think, I think he likes that paranoia that I have. And I think if you're a CEO, first of all, do you have as the CEO, are you a young CEO? Are you a seasoned CEO? I've had the fortunate experience of working for 2 industry veterans. Now, Frank's obviously a legendary CEO. Bob's in my opinion, even though he wasn't a CEO, he's a legendary guy, right? Even before he came to Snowflake, right? So I think it depends on the kind of the ability of the CEOs to support the development of those people. Do you also have board members that can help raise that head of sales, head of marketing, head of product, whoever it is? Because there's pluses and minuses to doing that. And I think if you bring in board members, like I'm getting asked to do a ton of advisory work now on just not coming in to replace the current head of sales, but sit down with the head of marketing, sit down with the head of sales and help them craft, their go-to-market, which I'm super pumped to do because that's really fun, is helping do that and create the next version of me. And the next Chris Degnan is who is going to be that next person up. And I'm super excited to, see the future stars, rise.
Well, that's incredible. So just recapping, it was really an atmospheric condition around Snowflake, a mindset, an ethos among the senior leadership and board. Give a lot of credit to Mike, give a lot of credit to John, that they had that mindset of, hey, yes, we'll surgically bring in new talent when we need it, but we're going to spend a lot of time grooming our people. Denise was the CMO of a $100 million company prior to this one, and now is a $1 billion CMO and her own in her own way, kind of an icon. And everybody on this leadership team now, everybody's in the industry is fascinated by this team and how they evolve. But it's really neat to see that you guys are a bunch of scrappy hustlers without huge resumes coming in, and you have this first time, guy with Moogly, and then set the stage for a legendary guy like Frank to come in and take it across the goal line and turn it into a really lasting company.
Yeah,
congratulations on everything here. No, the question I have for you is the final piece of advice to you young sales leaders, other than learning, take a learning approach, be curious, be humble, seek out advice. That learning mindset is important. What about VCs? In terms of VCs, I see VCs a lot. They call me constantly saying, I think I should take this person out, that person out. And most of the time I'm saying, no, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't even think about that until you're totally sure your existing people aren't going to make it. And do you even know? Most of them aren't operators. And so you really have to kind of do that. But what would you say to VCs, broadly speaking? What advice would you give them not to make mistakes of ripping people out prematurely?
I think that, look, I mean, this is a sore subject, because I think one of the things that Mike said to me coming in was, hey, you'll get to meet all these venture capitalists as we go along the way. And I thought they would all be like Mike, and Mike is unique.
He's special.
And you know the VC community well. I mean, look, a lot of these folks are spreadsheet jockeys who are smart, right? They went to, Harvard or Yale or Stanford or whatever to get their masters, but they've never really operated, in the real world. So, my advice would be, make sure you have real world operators that are advising you, that are on your board. Like, bring on a person like Denise Pearson on your board. She's a badass. She will tell you how it is. She will tell you exactly, how to run your company. But rely on bring in, like, you don't have to know it all yourself. That's the point, is because you're some amazing VC, you made hundreds of millions of dollars. Who cares? What are you going to add? How are you adding value to your, organization? Like the model that I see at Sequoia with us was Pat Grady made the investment, but who's on our board? Carl Eschenbaum, and he's an operator. And man, he is an asset to our company, right? And that's what an awesome model. So I would say, look at what Sequoia is doing. Look how John McMahon is on a ton of boards. Go seek out those operators and put them on board. They will make your existing investments in the leadership. They'll tell you if they're going to work or not, right? Really quickly, and because they've been in that world, right? And I think that's the advice I'd give.
Dead on. Last question for you. How do you manage the stress, Chris? I mean, every single day working under an interesting and demanding character, Slootman, and then you've got this crushing responsibility of this 60, 70 billion, $80 billion market cap company. How have you dealt with the stress? What's the learning there? How do you cope?
Anxiety and drinking. No, I don't know. Anxiety medication. No. I think in all seriousness, I think the job was way harder, 3-4 years ago than it is now. It's different. You have literally everyone trying to kill you, from the largest companies in the world, materially now that Google has decided that we're enemy number 2 or 3 behind Amazon and Microsoft, right? That's pretty daunting, right? But at the same time, I love it, right? Because I'm excited about it. And what's nice about the scale that we're at now is I hire people that are way better than me at scaling the company. So, I'm really focused on, as Frank has me focused on, is systemic issues. What are systemic issues? And that's actually, I enjoy that. Okay, go find, is it a people issue? Is it a product issue? Is it a market issue? What is it, right? And so, in terms of how I've handled the stress, look, my wife will tell you, there's been some dark days in the Degnan household going, through this, and it's been stressful. But I will tell you that I have this, sick mind where, I could never leave it, because I have this addiction to this world that I'm in. And, if Frank were to fire me tomorrow, I probably have to keep doing it somewhere else, because I like doing it. I have this addiction to doing it. So it keeps me going. So, I think, the advice I'd give to people as you're hyperscaling, do take an opportunity to shut it down every once in a while. Do take an opportunity to step away. Don't forget about your family, because your family, will feel that brunt. And find things to do that you enjoy. But this is what I enjoy to do, and this is my passion, and this is, fun stuff. So find passion in what you're doing, and everything else becomes easy.
Promise is the last question, my friend. I know you got a busy day. You're public now. Everybody's made a ton of money. How do you stay motivated, and how do you keep your team motivated, even though everybody could walk away and buy boats and planes and lots of houses and do whatever? You guys seem like you're executing better than ever. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I got to give Frank a lot of credit. Like, first of all, there was some problems organizationally, prior to Frank showing up, and Frank came in and saw that and made some changes, right? And after making those changes, like, we just, like, my quarterly business review is the company's quarterly business review, and so we bring everyone in, and we just, like a couple of weeks ago, we did our Q1 QBR, and Frank was like, man, everyone is working together again. There isn't this, like, because we got to a point where there was some kind of pointing at like this. It's no longer that way. We're all the entire executive team. Frank has done a good job of getting everyone to work well together. And so there isn't this kind of, hey, hey, Christian Kleinerman, you suck, or Chris Degnan, you suck, or Denise Pierce. No, like, I pick up the phone and call Denise, or she picks up the phone and call me, or Christian, and saying, or Greg, our VP of engineering, and saying, hey, this is great. So I think Frank has created a great culture, around surviving it. And what, we, prior to going public, there was an opportunity for us to sell, which I now regret. I did sell some stock prior to going public. But I said to Frank, it was actually a healthy experience for me, because that was more money than I ever thought I'd ever make in my entire life, let alone in just one setting. And it didn't change anything. Like, my family doesn't want to move out of my house. I still feel like the same human being. I still have the same friends. I don't want to change anything. So it's like, I'm just going to keep doing this until it becomes boring. And
what are you playing for? Is it because we believe we could build an iconic company, the next door?
Yes.
Amazon?
I think legitimately, it's like, I live in Redwood City, California. Across the freeway in Redwood Shores is Oracle. Like, we used to joke, is like, Benoit used to say we could buy Oracle someday, and I'm like, you know what, man? Why not? Maybe we may not want to buy them, but I think we have the opportunity to be a much better version of the next generation of one of the greatest tech companies of all time.
That's what I was looking for. You think you can build a lasting company that we can all go to our graves saying we built something that's an institution. That's what you're playing for, and people buy that.
So I know product market fit. I've seen it, right? And the cool thing for me is we're just like, there's another phase of product market fit that we're just like cutting the tip of the iceberg on. And it's around this kind of data cloud and data sharing and helping customers monetize data. Who cares if you have some technical widget that loads data really fast? All you really want is, as a business user, you want to be able to connect data and in real time and do analytics against that. If we can make the data cloud a reality, which we're batting every time I have this conversation with customers, materially massive companies, they all buy in. So I'm bought in hook, line, and sinker into this data cloud of where we're going. And like I said, I can't sell ice to Eskimos. I can only sell something I'm passionate about, and I'm passionate about this. And I think we're gonna dominate. So I'm very bullish on the company. So
am I, Chris. You've been really a big inspiration for a lot of emerging leaders across the board, particularly sales leaders. And you spending this time, I think, is going to benefit a lot of people. Thank you so much, and it's great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you, Andy. All right, thank you. All right, see you. Bye.